the people who are live streaming and others that all points of view are welcome. And the only requirement is that we express ourselves in a civil fashion. And at the same time, I am going to feel free to express my attitudes and points of view, which I never do in my classes. I am so subtle and quiet and modest. But in this forum, I will share my own personal feelings. And then I have, in the usual capitals, my views should not be understood as reflecting the views of Wilshire Boulevard Temple. Okay? So I've said it, and it's me. And today is Wednesday. Something is happening all across the country. Today is the day before Purim. Tonight is Purim, right? Tonight Purim starts. Tomorrow is Purim. The day before Purim, which is right now, is called Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther. And that commemorates, as in the book of Esther, the time when Esther issued an invitation to all the Jews of the dominion there to fast, because the next day she was going to go in to see King Ahasuerus, and that could be a fatal encounter. So Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther, today is a fast day. But in the United States and across many communities, today has become a fast day in support of the Ukraine. So you will see in many communities, especially in the day schools, synagogues as well, that today is a fast day in support of Ukraine. And it's a weird fast. Unlike every other fast on the Jewish calendar, Ta'anit Esther is only from morning until evening. In other words, it didn't start last night until tonight, which would be normal. No, today is this morning until this evening. And there are communities that have curtailed some of their Purim celebrations. That's very controversial, but they did it. And you have some reactions in some schools where the teenagers are saying, we shouldn't be partying, we should be expressing solidarity with the Ukraine. That's a big issue within Jewish law anyway, but it is interesting. One of the things about Ta'anit Esther, which is certainly relevant to all of us today, is that if you are unable to fast, now, for example, we're just finding out about fasting for Ukraine now at noon until this evening. That's less than a half a day. So instead of that, the tradition is give tzedakah. And in place of fasting, or in addition to fasting, and I will just mention that the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, HIAS, H-I-A-S, and the Joint Distribution Committee, JDC, are places that we support and believe in. And but if you would like to do that, that would be super and appropriate and fun.
Rabbi, the World Union for Progressive Judaism has a Ukraine relief fund.
Yes.
And apparently from the daily emails we're getting from them, they're really in need of that money and using it well.
Yeah, yes. And there is a Jewish community, a liberal Jewish community in the Ukraine plus everybody is involved in resettlement. Everybody is involved in resettlement. And so certainly the World Union is a good place, and certainly I supporting that. Thank you. The Russian ambassador to Israel has asked for an emergency meeting with the Speaker of the Knesset, whose name I'm sure comes immediately to mind, Mickey Levy. No, okay. In any event, so Mickey has been asked by the Russian ambassador for an emergency meeting. He wants to protest Zelensky's request to speak on Sunday to the Knesset. So the Russian ambassador is protesting a request by Zelensky to address the Knesset. And immediately there are rumors, and I love rumors. Immediately there are rumors that if Zelensky speaks, Putin wants to speak. It's a rumor. But in this crazy world, who knows? More stuff. There are 15,000 dual citizen Israelis in the Ukraine. That means Ukrainian citizens, Israeli citizens. And of the 15,000, only 2,000 are left in Ukraine today. The rest have gone straight to Israel. Gone straight to Israel. The 2,000 who are left are either physically infirm or males between the age of 18 and 60, they can't leave. So Israel is confronting a massive immigration, and there's problems about that. We could talk about it. But of the dual citizens, they're gone. Reese and I were just watching a regular, I don't know, it was WNBC or was it the CNN, whatever we were on at the moment, and they were showing at the Polish border organizations greeting the refugees, and there was this big sign that said Bruchim Habayim, welcome. So obviously Israeli organizations are there and doing it. And I have to point out that Chabad is doing a great job of involving themselves in this as well. I give credit where credit is due. There was I can't say terrible because everything is terrible, but in the Kharkiv, the city that is surrounded and being bombed into insignificance, there was a big Hillel organization, and the Hillel offices were struck and destroyed, and one kid was killed. So it goes on. Now, the good news. Elon Musk has formally challenged Putin to hand-to-hand combat. I am not kidding. Okay, I mean, it's my job to let you have a little bit of good news, right? So Elon Musk, who is 50, has challenged Putin to hand-to-hand combat. The prize, if Musk wins, Russia pulls out. I'm not sure what happens if Putin wins, but there it is. There's been no answer yet from Putin. In the meanwhile,
maybe Musk will give him a ride on SpaceX.
I mean, that's a thing. Yeah, I mean, okay, that's a thing. That's expensive. Yeah, I mean, I think it's delightful. I mean, Putin loves to show himself off, you know, without his shirt and whatever, and skating with the Russian skating team, ice skating. And so here's a challenge. We should know and respect. Elon Musk has his own satellite-supported internet system. He has a lot of his own stuff. It's called Starlink, Starlink. Musk opened Starlink to Ukrainian cities whose internet has been bombed off the air. That's awesome. I think that's very nice. But Steve, he didn't offer them rides on SpaceX, but he did open up his satellite internet system to the residents of Ukraine to use. Next, 30 to 40 Russian oligarchs have taken out Israeli citizenship. Yeah, you talk about controversial. First of all, it means that there are 30 or 40 Russian Jewish billionaires. Okay, they've taken out Israeli citizenship. Again, very controversial, very controversial. And on the good side, the Jewish Federations of North America have already raised $27 million to support humanitarian work for the Ukraine. I am going to pause here to share with you. I only hope I can read it. I'm not screen sharing, so I am responsible. We all know that Odessa, which is now under serious threat of destruction, is the setting for the 19th century revival of all Hebrew literature in the world. It happened in Odessa. Not only that, but some of the greatest Hebrew language authors, including Bialik, including Chernyakhovsky, including Echad Ha'am, have strong Odessa contacts. Odessa is a significant place in Jewish cultural life. To mention as well, Risa loves to point this out, the Chabad organization has its home in the Ukraine. Many of the great Hasidic teachers were from the Ukraine. I am going to share a poem which, for those who are into Hebrew literature, written by Shaul Chernyakhovsky, who is of the Ukraine. It is considered to be a very, very, very important meditation by a man living in a country where pogroms still happen and the threatening of Jewish life still happened. He wrote a poem called Ani Ma'amin. I'm just going to do the English. The Hebrew is known as Sachaki Sachaki, but I'm just going to read the English. Sachaki Sachaki. Rejoice, rejoice now in the dreams. I, the dreamer, am he who speaks. Rejoice, for I'll still have faith in humankind. For I believe in humankind. For my soul still yearns for freedom. I've not sold it to a calf of gold. For I shall yet have faith in humankind, in its spirit, great and bold. That will cast off binding chains, raise us up, hold high our heads. Workers will not die of hunger. For souls, release. For poor folk, bread. Rejoice, for I have faith and friendship. I'll find a heart, and this I've faith. A heart that shares in all my hopes, a heart that feels both joy and pain, and I shall keep faith in the future. Though the day be yet unseen, surely it will come when nations will all live in blessed peace. Then my people too will flourish, and a generation shall arise in the land, shake off its chains, and see light in every eye. It shall live, love, accomplish, labor in the land. It is alive, not in the future, not in the heaven, and its spirit shall from now on thrive. A poet shall sing a new anthem, his heart aware of beauty sublime. For him, that young man, above my tomb, blossoms in a wreath shall twine. Odessa, 1892. Sachaki, Sachaki, rejoice, for I have faith in humankind. I believe in humankind. Shaul Chernichovsky, Odessa. It's part of who we are. I'm going to take a pause right here and ask if you have any feelings, thoughts you would like to, Steve Muller, you would like to share regarding Ukraine.
Yeah, I
Steve.
just want to go back to what you were talking about right before the poem. I guess I put it in the category of collateral damage. 7 of the billionaire oligarchs we have sanctioned provide well in excess of $20 million a year to nonprofits in the US, nearly all of which are Jewish organizations.
That
And that's all cut off right now.
that represents part of the dilemma. Maybe the richest, second richest of the oligarchs, I think his name is Abramovich, a Jewish fellow who is one of the biggest donors to Israeli cultural institutions. Not only does he own a soccer team in the UK, which he's now having to sell, but he is incredibly charitable. And then you move, Steve, to the United States, and these people support NGOs, nonprofits in the United States. When we hear the word oligarch, it sounds so evil. Maybe it is, but it isn't simple. Doris?
No, I was just going to go back to the Russian oligarchs applying for Israeli citizenship. I mean, do they just go ahead and say, hey, I want to become an Israeli citizen and fill out the papers? And
They're Jewish. They're Jewish.
I figured that out. But is he
Under
going to let
the
them
law-
go if they want to go to Israel, though?
Under the law of return, any Jew anywhere in the world, upon application, will be automatically granted citizenship to Israel. You, them, any Jew.
I thought that
Part of the
changed
law
in-
of return.
How will they be accepted?
What?
I mean, in Israel after, of course, they're not responsible for Putin, but I guess what can they do about it is the
I
question.
thought that changed and you had to commit to remaining a resident of Israel to get your citizenship under
The-
the recent law.
No, it isn't that way, especially under times like this. They've done it. These people have already done it. And I mean, Doris is raising the question, how do we feel about that? Again, the oligarchs, that word is so ugly. They have been a major support of Putin, and Abramovich has been in the past a supporter of Putin, along with his millions and millions of dollars of support for charitable enterprises. Harvey.
Yeah, I thought, and maybe Steve knows more about it, but I think these recent immigrants fall under a special Israeli tax break for immigrants. So they get a real free ride for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, something like that. But maybe some others know more about it.
I can tell you, Harv, that that's really a minimal thing. The tax break, the United States right now is pressing for a worldwide minimum tax that you can't go to any place and avoid paying. What did they, Harv? I think it was 15%, whatever.
Only corporations.
The world is catching up with that, but Israel is not a tax haven. Its citizens pay over 50% income tax.
Yeah, but I think that these guys being immigrants get a break on that the
You
first
get
year
a
or
break
two.
for a year, but I don't think it matters. Yeah,
But they haven't openly supported Putin with respect to Ukraine.
there we go. And that's the problem. Joanne has her hand.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if when they become Israeli citizens, that won't free up their money that we've sanctioned, right? What is the
That is-
advantage of being an Israeli citizen?
That is correct. Under sanctions, that will not protect them a penny or a ruble. I don't know if they want rubles, but a penny. No, they are not protected. That is correct. Penina.
Well,
Penina?
yeah, okay. First, I want to say thank God that we have Israel. They have a place to go that they know that they can get in. Second, when they bought the Falashim, they didn't have a penny. They came barefoot. They didn't even know how to use toilets. And the Yemenites, they actually built a whole new city in Beersheba, in the desert.
No, Penina, these oligarchs are Russians.
I know, but
They didn't come
with
penniless.
money, you can build and you can do even without. They'll find a way, even if they have to make up another city, just like they did with the Falashi Jews, who they didn't have a penny. So I trust that their motivation and ingenuity is there. And if they choose to go, they know why they're going there. They could have taken refuge in any other country in Europe or in whatever.
That is true.
Yeah,
That is
they'll
true.
do it. You watch and see. Watch my words. There's going to be another city getting up somewhere. That's it.
How will Israel accept them? I mean, will they be welcome?
They have the room and they have the resources. They just made a deal with Jordan too regarding access to water. That's the main thing there, the water. And they have desalinations and they have they know and they do.
Penina, forgive me, with all, Penina, the deal with Jordan has nothing to do with this issue.
It doesn't matter as long as they have access to other
so
sources.
Let's keep to the topic.
Okay,
Let's-
okay.
let's
What
keep
I'm
to the
saying
topic.
is that they are considered to be, I read a list of nations that are considered to be rich. Well, guess what? Israel is one of them.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah.
Anything else about oligarchs, Israel, what's going on in Ukraine right now? Zelensky is a tremendously smart cookie. We were just talking, Gilroy and I were just talking this morning that when he addressed the parliament in the UK, he talked all about Churchill. And today, when he addressed Congress, he talked about Pearl Harbor and 9/11. This guy is smart. And he tailors his message in a really wonderful way. I have to tell you, hey, I have a right to my opinions in this call. I am really disappointed that Biden didn't respond to Zelensky by announcing something more serious.
Right.
Basically, Biden responded by repeating the announcement he made yesterday about the 800 million. I'm grateful for the 800 million. But as far as I was able to tell, Biden offered
Nothing.
nothing new. 800 million is nice. If someone offered me 800, I'd take it.
He needs airplanes.
Brad, you're shaking your head. Share your thinking.
I don't know enough about this other than to guess that Putin would like nothing better than to draw us in to this conflict. And I think Biden is being very, very prudent in not falling into that trap.
Okay, thank you. And maybe for the first time in 5-8 years, you and I might have a disagreement on that, but that's good. Harvey.
I think I'm siding with Brad, but not quite with Brad. I think it's a tightrope that they're trying to walk, and we may fall off and end up with a war anyways. But nobody knows. And NATO is trying to do the right thing, and I'm surprised that NATO has done as much as they have, given the European reaction to Hitler in the 30s, which they pretty much did nothing.
Doris.
I'm just wondering what the difference is between what the United States is giving them versus the airplanes. I mean, isn't everything else helping them? And the airplanes are a whole separate thing. That's what's throwing me, because if you can give them all that equipment and all that stuff to help them, why can't you give them the airplanes?
Okay, I can just tell you that I'm reflecting on no, I didn't fight in the Civil War. I was in the Army in the Vietnam War, so no smart comments. But when I was in the Army already, we had artillery pieces in the 1960s that could fire 25 miles away. That is weird to think about. In other words, the equipment is here. It can fire 25 miles away.
Wow.
So that was then. I mean, what can they do today? I'm sure much more. I guess much better is okay. Then the cruise missiles have done the biggest problem. The cruise missiles are fired by military aircraft as much as 1,000 miles away in the air. Cruise missile fired will travel 1,000 miles to its target. Those missiles, Doris, have done huge damage, and nothing that the US has given Ukraine can protect against missiles fired from the air. Nothing. And that's the difference. Ray has his hand up. Ray.
Yes. This war is costing Russia $20 billion a day. Their government bonds are currently 10 cents on the dollar. And they've got bond payments coming up today and the end of the month on which they may default. This is going to set the GDP numbers in Russia back 20 or 30 years. I think the key to this is China. China has been very cagey in all of this, and I hope negotiations are going on with China to give China something that they want to not support Russia, because if Russia's isolated, they can't continue this financially too long. China is their lifeline. I think that's the key to ending this.
We're going to
Turning
see.
China-
We're going to see that, Ray, and I fully, that's what everyone seems to be saying. The move that China makes may, in fact, make the big difference in all of this. Okay, Brad, please.
Yeah, want to just chime into what Ray said there. I don't know if you happen to see the article by Tom Friedman this morning in I think it was the New York Times, where he's pointed out that the recent surge of the virus in China is leading to the economy shutting down, which is driving oil prices down, which is a big factor in Russia's economy, is the receipts from their oil sales. And with China going into pandemic isolation, that demand is decreasing, and it's having a dramatic effect on the Russian economy.
Okay, yes, I haven't read that one yet, but yeah, Tom Friedman was the guy who a long time ago said the worst thing that exists in the world is our energy dependence. And you know that the United States is now a self-proclaimed energy independent country because we permit fracking. And fracking is disastrous for the environment. And independence in energy is absolutely important. And if asked, I will not accept nomination to become president of the United States. I would not like to have to make those choices. Where's the win? It's very tough. Okay, next, good news. Okay, you ready for good news? We're going to shift from the Ukraine to good news. President Herzog visited Erdogan of Turkey. And we pronounce Erdogan, even though he spells his name Erdogan, but it's pronounced Erdogan. Okay. It was a good visit. We don't know what can come of it, but a good visit. And then in the last couple of days, I don't know, Risa, if you've seen this, there are indications that Turkey will return to Israel the 2,700-year-old Shiloach inscription. That's a big deal, and may I explain that? If it's true, the Israeli press declares it to be true, which means I at least halfway believe it. There is a tunnel. Back up. Jerusalem's built on hill. There is a tunnel that goes through the bottom of the hill to a point where water that would come up from the tunnel can be brought up to Jerusalem. Are you with me so far? The Bible, which may not always be historically accurate, the Bible describes how in the time of King Hezekiah, a tunnel was built so that if Jerusalem were under siege, they would not be cut off from water. I've been looking at myself, and I really could have said all of that without moving my hands, but nevertheless, there it is. The tunnel was dug by workers going in two directions. This is 2,700 years ago. They dug down, they dug out. And from outside the hill, whatever, of mountains of Jerusalem, they dug in. And in the Bible, the book of Kings, it says that the workers built in two directions and they met. That tunnel is permanently, today yet, hosting a stream of water. That's kind of fun to think about. The first time that the Davids family entered that stream, it had not been excavated in a whole bunch of hundreds of years. The water was up to my chin. Being irresponsible parents, we brought our 3 kids with us as we were guiding a group of teenagers. The only way the little one, Aviva, made it through was hanging on to my neck and kicking. Today, we all got through. Today, it is a major tourist site and a wonderful place. You can see the work of the diggers in the tunnel. And you can see where they met in two directions. Almost straight, not miracle straight, but 2,700 years ago, people dug in one direction, dug in the other direction, underground, and met. They put then a stone tablet inscription where the workers met. That is called the Siloam, S-I-L-O-A-M, in Hebrew, Shiloach, the Siloam inscription, which during the time of Byzantine control of the Holy Land, it was taken to Turkey. The inscription was taken to Turkey.
Why?
This stone ancient Hebrew inscription, you realize the Hebrew is old, let alone the inscription is old. And it says the workers in one direction heard the shovels of the workers in the other direction. Then they called to each other and broke through. In the inscription.
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay.
It is the oldest inscription of its kind that the Jewish people
Oh
have.
my goodness, that's amazing.
Penina, could you mute?
Okay.
Penina, Penina, could you mute, please? Okay, it is the oldest inscription that we have of a living Hebrew language and a total validation of the biblical account of King Hezekiah and the tunnel. Did I sound excited? I am. We have pictures. You can look it up on Google, the tunnel of Siloam. You can look it up and it'll show you the inscription and the whole thing. And there is a possibility that it may be coming back to Israel. That is going to be, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, a really important historical move. And, of course, Israel, according to the news reports, will be sending to Turkey religiously significant items from the Israel Museum. So if it's true, I think it's good to have a little bit of a an occasion to smile. Anything on that? If not, we're going to go into news of the day. Anything else you want to raise? Okay,
I have a question.
David or Lori, who?
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Okay, David, yes.
Can I? Yeah,
Yes.
is that at the Temple Mount? Does that pertain to the Temple Mount at all?
Yes, it does totally. The Temple Mount is a hill on the mount on which Jerusalem is built. There are a lot of hills. Jerusalem itself, if you walk the streets, Jerusalem itself on hills, and the Temple Mount, yes, same place. So that in protection, as Hezekiah would have done, of the temple as well as of Jerusalem, the tunnel was significant in case of siege. Okay? All right.
And
Anything
it still
else?
has water running through today?
Yes, it does.
And it still has water today? Okay.
Yeah, no one, I have to tell you, it's not part of Jerusalem's daily water supply today. They use like pipes and other stuff. But yes, when tourists visit Jerusalem, you can walk through the water of Shiloah. And the good news is that as you come out, there are people selling souvenirs. So, you know, it's what you expect. Anything else? If not, we go forward. We mentioned a couple of meetings ago and didn't really finish the story about a Jewish educator in a synagogue in Westchester, New York, who was fired because she was espousing anti-Zionist beliefs online. Among the things that she said in her blog is that Israel has a legalized apartheid regime and has been brutalizing Palestinians for decades. We reject Zionist claim to any of the land of Palestine. She continued, it is the duty of white American Jews, that's a quote, to support Palestinian liberation, and any claim that the Jews of Israel have to self-determination is a racist act. That Zionism is alien to Judaism. America should not offer aid to Israel. Israel is committing genocide and state-sponsored murder. This is a teacher we just hired in the religious school. She was fired. That's the point. I await your comments. We do not sit on the Education Committee of Westchester Reform or on the board, but how do you feel about the board firing her? She was not teaching Israel in the class.
Didn't they check her out before they hired her to know who she was?
I have to, Doris, I don't know if anybody in hiring a religious school teacher checks their blogs. I don't know. Clearly they didn't, but I also don't know if Wilshire Boulevard or University Synagogue in the past would check blog posts before offering a teacher a job. Jewish teacher, knowledgeable, certified, wants to teach, and then she's there. Any other comments? How do you feel about it? Did they do right, Steve?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't care if she's a religious school teacher or a janitor. If she's in a Jewish institution and those are her views, she shouldn't be there, and they have every right to get rid of her. And should.
Okay, I think Steve expressed an opinion strongly. Okay, any other thoughts on this? How do you feel? Should they should they have a line in the sand over which no employee of the synagogue could pass? Any other thoughts? Penina?
I think, first of all, they have to make sure that the people that they hire knows the right history, the origin even of the names. If people don't know how to explain the existence of the word Palestine, I don't think they even have the right to address any issue of rights. During the Roman Empire, when we were all taken down by exile, down to Rome, Adrianus, I think, was at the time the emperor. He is the one who decided that this particular piece of land that he just conquered.
Okay, but the question
demolished.
is, should the synagogue fire someone?
Yes, not because of her views, but because of her lack of knowing in history.
Or
Because
ignorance?
that's why.
Okay,
And let me finish my sentence. He decided that the land is not going to be called anymore Yehuda or Israel, because he wanted to show that it was a conquered area that he dominated. And he's the one who named it Palestina because of the Philistines that were
okay,
there.
that's
That's
fine.
it. So that now at least we know that the land was under siege, and it was a Judea in Israel, and yes, we have a right to have it, and that's it. Regarding
Miriam?
the division,
Miriam?
we were willing to share. They did not want to share. That's it. Period.
Okay. Rabbi, would this be analogous to hiring a public school teacher here in Los Angeles and finding out that the public school teacher was spouting this? The Nazis should have won. America is an apartheid country. Nazism is really what we should be looking for, not Americanism, which this other person said Zionism. And would it be analogous to our firing this person because they cannot teach this? We cannot stop them from saying it, but they were hired as a teacher. Therefore, they cannot espouse this and be a teacher where their words are being heard by children or adults. If they're teaching adults, it doesn't matter. Their words are being heard by their students, which are totally anti-American. And therefore, on those grounds, we have a right to fire this person. Would it be analogous to that?
Miriam, I'd like to just ask, do we have any lawyers? I know Steve is. Are there other lawyers on the call? Ray, yeah? So I'm going to throw it back to the lawyers.
I was just putting in the chat that, I think that, first of all, there are totally different rules about who you can fire and what kind of rights people have between public institutions and religious institutions.
Right.
The Supreme Court held in a case, actually, that the Mormon Church, it didn't matter what the job was, any job, religious, non-religious, janitorial, gardener, they could legally only hire Mormons if that's what they chose to do.
Right.
I do think that even in the public schools, they do have curriculums, and they can do the school boards can do certain things to limit what's spoken. But my guess is once the person's hired, they have far less ability to just fire someone for their views or what they say outside of the school context.
Right,
Ray,
they call it freedom of speech. That's it.
Ray, do you want to jump in?
Sure. There's a big difference between a public institution and a private institution. There is no protection for freedom of speech in a private institution. The freedom of speech First Amendment protections apply to public or government institutions. This school probably has a mission statement, and this teacher's views were inconsistent with the mission statement. She's not a part of what we would call a protected class. She's not being terminated because of her race or ethnicity or or gender identification. Merely her views were not protected constitutionally. And I think the institution has every right and should let teachers go whose views are inconsistent with their mission.
They're
Thank you.
promoting hate.
Thank you,
That's the
Brad.
whole thing.
Well, I'm a little confused. I mean, you said that she was disseminating these views on a blog.
Right.
Was she imparting these views in the classroom?
Apparently, according to all the news reports, no.
Oh,
No. She
Okay,
was
well,
teaching whatever her curriculum, holidays and whatever else she's teaching, not dealing with Israel, but she was out. You know, blogs are totally in the air for everybody. And she was out there as a person who said these things.
Brad, where you're going, just so you know, for example, there are universities that are evangelical in nature. You sign a statement that says you won't sing, you won't dance. Doesn't matter if you're home on vacation, they kick you out. I know someone who taught in a Catholic school for a decade and wouldn't lie like some of her friends when asked to sign something that said, you know, I won't have sex outside of marriage, I won't do this, I won't do that, none of which has anything to do or would even be known by students. So you'd have to look at it all in context, and that's another difference. There's probably less ability to do that in a public institution as well.
Okay, we're going to take a vote in a minute. Any other comment? Merle, do you have your hand up? Yep.
Okay, so in response to Miriam's comment, here in Scottsdale years ago, one teacher was eventually fired after she got sent from school to school for, what do you call it? For telling kids, and there were 2 rabbis' kids in one of her classes, that there was no Holocaust. So eventually, she got fired from the Scottsdale school system. Another teacher in one of the high schools was teaching non-Jewish Bible study, condemning Jewish figures in one, and I think it was in her English class. And she eventually was involuntarily retired. She was close to retirement age, and they just retired her because the rabbis and the ADL and everybody in the city were extremely disturbed by it. In this woman's case, I think she should be fired. You're teaching, blogs are now all over the place. You know, blogs are like writing the headlines of a newspaper, as far as I'm concerned, with how people find them. And I feel like when somebody writes something like this in a blog, people are going to see it, and then they're going to talk about it with their children, or their children are going to see it, and they're going to discuss it with their friends. And I don't think she belongs teaching in a Jewish institution.
Okay, you understand that none of this would have hit the press if it hadn't been controversial in Westchester.
Exactly.
That is to say, there were those who in the synagogue supported her being retained.
Well, but that's an issue that we have anywhere about anything, unfortunately.
Okay, let's just do a vote. You are now the school board of Westchester Reformed Temple. You've pulled up to the building in your Audis, your Mercedes. Oh, that was wrong. Anyway, you pull up to the building, you go in for a meeting, and in front of you is the request on the part of the school, the principal or the educator or the rabbi, to fire this teacher. All those who would vote yes for terminating the teacher, please raise your hands. . Okay, those who would vote no. Because I am the kind of person who looks for controversy, Brad, why would you not?
Well, like I said, to me, it sounds like the thought police. I mean, if she was not espousing these views in the classroom and she was doing her job as a teacher, I don't see the basis for terminating her from the school. I obviously disagree with her on all of her views, but if she's not inculcating them in the classroom, I don't see where there's a basis for terminating her.
Okay, thank you. And I see, let's see, Sylvia.
If this were a public school, and she wrote what she wrote in the blog, and she's teaching English literature or something, and the two subjects never got anywhere near each other, I could say that Brad is probably right. But she's teaching in a Jewish school while believing anti-Zionist things. And if it hadn't come up or spilled over into the classroom, the chances that it would are very slim. Because, they would eventually show up because that's how she feels and it's going to come out. So it's inappropriate for someone teaching Jewish studies of any sort, in a sense, to be anti-Jewish.
Okay, Ray.
This has nothing to do with her thoughts or beliefs. It has everything to do with her publication of those thoughts and beliefs, her publication to the world.
Okay, and there we are. This is real as a problem because what Brad is saying is absolutely true. We can't have thought police, and for better and for worse, there is a significant number of Jews who believe the way she believes. To say that it doesn't belong in a Jewish school, does that mean that those people who hold those beliefs don't belong in a synagogue? Clearly all of us here find it obnoxious, objectionable, horrible, terrible. But the question is excluding. Miriam.
Yes, I have a question for Brad, my friend, whom you know I respect. Does that mean, Brad, that a Lincoln Rockwell of yesterday, a major anti-Semite, that Bund speakers in New Jersey during the war, that Father Coughlin, such a huge anti-Semite whose main purpose in life was to spew as much anti-Jewish rhetoric to anybody that would listen to him, which were mobs of people that listened to him, that they have, because of the First Amendment, the right to incite mobs, to get them to hate as much as they did. They have that right, just as this teacher has that right. And as Ray said very profoundly, to publish her thoughts.
Okay, Brad.
Miriam, I grew up in Skokie, Illinois, where the Nazis marched.
Yes, I was going to mention them.
Well, they had a legal right to march. It's not that I don't agree with anything that they say, but I would agree with their right to speak.
They have a legal
You
right
wouldn't
to
hire
incite
them,
mobs.
Brad.
To incite mobs?
No,
And you wouldn't hire
inciting
them.
a mob, that's different. Obviously, inciting to violence is different.
Okay, okay, Joanne, you haven't spoken.
I was just
Okay.
going to say, by virtue of the fact that she teaches at the school, even what she says outside of it, I think it would connect back to the school. Just because she's say, oh, she teaches at this school, so, and this is what she's saying. I don't think you can separate what she says in the school and what she says outside of the school.
Do you at least agree with me that it's really complicated? There are issues. And on the face of it, I wouldn't want to be in the same city with this woman. Okay? On the other hand, there is this freedom of expression. And on the other hand, the third hand, the fourth hand, the Jewish community is not of one voice. And just because we have the power doesn't necessarily mean that our decisions are correct. Okay, I am going to.
Rabbi, I just want to add one thing, because the fact that
Okay, Tiny.
the fact that the parents may have different views on this is different than having someone essentially, if you're in a position of authority and you're a teacher and you have sanctioned authority to advocate this and it's seemingly endorsed, is very different than whether you will accept different views among the equals within your congregation or parent families or whatever. There is a difference.
Yes, yes, I agree. Meanwhile, this week celebrates Purim and St. Patrick's Day. I mean, we do have to point out the conjunction. So our daughter, granddaughter actually made this. This is a green hamantash, which tries to blend culture. But if you are more of a straight-laced Jewish celebration, there's this. And you will notice that in my collection of hamantashen, there is no poppy seed. You may ask why. I will say, I hate poppy seed.
That's why.
And that probably means that my background somehow is not pure from Mount Sinai, because every Jew is supposed to like mon, poppy seed hamantashen, and I don't. So,
Neither do I.
I don't either.
But you just lost your excuse for failing your drug test.
I have an extraneous question, Rabbi, please, just for 1 minute. How can we connect tonight with Zoom to hear the Megillah? Can you please tell me how to do that at WBT?
Hannah Gold, you're here?
How do I reach Hannah? How do I reach her?
Okay, she I thought she'd be here. She's not. Miriam, I don't have the answer to that.
Well, I'd like not to miss it.
Okay, and there is the WBT bulletin.
Stan, there is no reading at Wilshire tonight. It's being done on Sunday night at that fundraiser where they're doing all of Purim. They're doing.
Okay, so there is none tonight at all.
No,
that's correct. There's no Purim. There's no Purim program tonight.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
We got an answer. Okay. Any last quick thought? 1 second spot. Okay, Panita, 1 second.
Okay, let me.
Panina, you're muted.
You muted yourself.
Okay, now?
Yes.
Okay, you know what? I was in Israel and my daughter broke her nose there. I took also a bunch of kids. I went for 3 years in a row. I was taking from the Jewish Bureau of Jewish Education in Cleveland. And I was leading kids and teaching them half a day and touring the area. My daughter broke her nose. She was with me. And I took her, and we were in Jerusalem, and I took her to the hospital, to Hadassah. There were 3 Arab women there, and one of them was pregnant, and she was screaming and yelling. They took her before they took my daughter, and my daughter had the bone actually sticking out of her nose and bleeding. They take care of them if they are letting you, and if they behave like normal human being. They are not being, it's lack of education. I would send this woman to Israel and make her go there so she should see for her own eyes that we are sharing the university. There are students in the university, they are doctors. They are practicing doctors in Hadassah, there in Jerusalem. My other girlfriend had a little boy had a heart condition, and he had a problem and there was a Palestinian doctor taking care of him. And the mother was kind of like, looked a little worried, and he told her, don't worry, I know what thoughts are in your head. I will take good care of him. And he did. It's lack of information. And that's what bothers me the most. The people who talk, don't talk unless you go, were you there? Somebody should ask her, did you ever been there? Did you see really how this, we are treating each other?
Thank you. Thank you
It's
very much.
horrible. It's horrible.
Thank you. Harv, did you have something that you wanted to say right now?
Real quickly, I think this whole discussion centers around what you think are facts. If you can't get the facts right as a teacher,
Exactly.
what kind of teacher are you? And I think that means the board had every right to get rid of her if she can't get facts right. That's my opinion.
That's right.
Have a beautiful Chag Purim Sameach.
Same to you.
A
Same to you.
wonderful,
Take care.
wonderful Purim.
Chag Sameach to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And have just a great week, and thank you for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Purim.
Happy Purim. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
Rabbi.
Rabbi, we appreciate all the effort that you put into these sessions.
I appreciate
Really
it
do.
very much, Miriam. It's an honor and a privilege.
We appreciate your letting us voice our opinions.
Yeah, well, we're gonna censor it before no, we won't. Okay, love everybody.
Merle, he always lets you voice your opinion. He just says you're wrong less frequently in this class.
Yeah, well, that's okay, you know, whatever he needs to say, or if somebody needs to dispute it.